It's good to meet you, His Holiness. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to ask you a question. And I'm not going to ask a question which is related to any politics. So my question is about Buddhism, pure Buddhism. A lot of people are thinking that believing in Buddhism means that you have to eliminate your desire to any materialism. Because as a Buddhism, I know it's not right. But could you explain a little bit more? Like, so in order to become a Buddhist, what is important? And do you really believe that only by eliminating desire can achieve like some kind of happiness or something like that? Or it's the opposite?
Thank you very much. Often wrong impression happen. Buddhism, in a way, increase desire. How here, desire for good, for long-term benefit, oneself, and also entire limitless sentient beings' joyfulness, happiness. We deliberately develop desire for that kind of sort of goal. Ordinary people, even very strong desire for just one family. Buddhist, entire sentient being. So anyway, desire is deliberately increasing. However, desire itself, nothing wrong. What sort of Buddhist teachings say you should not develop desire? That's attachment. Attachment is a kind of emotion. Even you see one time, one Chilean physicist, one great scientist, at our meeting, some scientist, some religious, sort of Christian religious leader, myself, there, you see, that Chilean physicist, scientist, you see, told his scientist, his field is physics, quantum physics, but he should not develop attachment towards his own field. Great sort of teaching. That's the Buddhist teaching, come from scientists. So I learned, I'm Buddhist, but I should not develop attachment towards Buddhism. Why? If I develop attachment, then my mind become biased. Then I can't see the true picture of other religious value. Once own mind biased, then you can't see things objectively. So therefore, attachment is always very bad. So then desire like your neighbor should face more problem. That kind of desire is negative. Desire, my neighbor also should be very successful sort of business. That desire is good. So there are differences. Next question.
Does it work? Okay. Hi. It's very interesting to hear that you are a Buddhist monk and also a Marxist.
Yes.
Because sounds for me there's a little
contradiction
there. Because I think
due to lack of knowledge.
I think Marxist theory, in the first place, it starts from a criticism of all kinds of religion. He thinks, I'm only speaking for him, or maybe I'm wrong.
I think Engels in the Jig Nangshi Shadwa.
Yeah, can I finish my question?
Yes.
So, for him, religion is a kind of a false consciousness that arises from the deficiency in the material world. So, for him, religion is something that deviates or distracts our human creativity or human power, mental power or whatever power, into some kind of make-believe or just like made kind of a world instead of the real material world. I think we have some confusion here about consumerism and materialism in a real sense, because for Marx, our real inner peace stems from our true consciousness of seeing ourselves in the world, that our work is not only to satisfy ourselves, to earn money and buy goods for ourselves, but also our work is also to serve others' needs. So for him, the right consciousness is always to see our right position in a material world, but not as opposed to retrieve to some inner world and to pursue this kind of inner peace on a very shallow sense. So for me, I don't think we can ever value a peaceful slave or a peaceful serial killer. So from what you said, I think I heard that in Buddhism, what we pursue is this kind of peacefulness. I see this as a little contradictory to our pursuit of truth, because if we only pay attention to peacefulness inside, then we might ignore the truth in our world. So I want to ask you that how do you kind of reconcile these two things? Because I see there's a not apparent but a latent at least contradiction there. Thank you.
이번에 가서.
저 나중에 닝부르부터 쌤이 시대제 와서 쌤이 시대제 되고 시대제 인지미 타지도 덴발 되고 에스케요 말아서 쌤이 시대제 되면 치된 베네주디 마신 마차가 들고 된다. 대반쳐야 다.
Firstly, firstly, as Buddhism also, you see, takes sort of important sort of consideration about temporary benefit, happiness, and long-term happiness. So for temporary happiness,
so you need so Buddhism speaks of four pursuits of human being, which includes wealth as a resource to satisfy our mundane needs, and dharma or spirituality as a means of fulfilling our spiritual aspiration of attainment of salvation.
And then I think some of you may know the Jimba Chudum Sabat Sundu Sajutedi,
and also, if you look at the Mahayana Buddhist teachings of the 6 virtues of perfection, such as generosity, morality, forbearance, and so on, all of these practices.
Not only just a meditation.
So there is a very active component that relates to the everyday world.
Then, Karl Marx come from West, Judeo-Christian background. I think Bolshevik Revolution as well as French Revolution, you see, there's some kind of negative attitude towards religion. That's not a religion itself, but religious institution. Religious institution, very close link with sort of ruling class. So therefore, in order to break up the ruling sort of system, you also need some kind of courage to against religious institution itself. So even today, I think sometimes I myself also, you see, some Tibetans or the religious institution, I often criticize. Right? So the religious institution and religion, two separate. Chairman Mao himself, you see, my last meeting, farewell sort of meeting, that also Chairman Mao himself called me. Formal farewell already finished. But then last day, I participated some steering committee of the National Assembly. There, I received one message from Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao waiting there. he wanted to see me. Then, with permission from Liu Shaoqi, then I went. Then, long conversation. How to sort of listen to people's different opinion, then how to sort of lead people. Wonderful sort of advice, wonderful advice. Then last moment, Chairman Mao, even if he's physically closer to me, and told me, your thinking is very scientific. Then he mentioned religion is poison. That's understandable. He used two reasons. Religion, Buddhist religion, very bad for increased population. It's true. More monk, more nun. Quality not very good. Rubbish monk, rubbish nun. It's simply obstacle of population. Not spiritual sort of, or say, the development. Good, small, good qualified. Good quality, not important quantity. Good quality. A monk, important, non-important. But too many, I think Mongolia's case, Tibetan case also, I think a little bit too much. So the Chairman Mao sort of, what's the accusation? Some truth there. But you see, and then second, he used the reason, the religion be obstacle to material development, as you mentioned, Marietta. Material progress. That also, as I mentioned earlier, the Buddhism, the true practice of Buddhism, must take care about material well-being. Buddhists, I think, not such foolish, you see, denying existence of this body. Body is here. The spiritual meditation will not fill our stomach. We need food. Food not come from prayer. Pray to Buddha, food come. No. We must cultivate. We must make food. And in order to gain, in order to get material sort of facility, you need money. So these four principles is mentioned, like that. So, like Karl Marx's sort of expression, and also Chairman Mao's sort of expression, these are lack of knowledge about what is religion in general, and particularly what is Buddhism. So it is fact, it is true. Many cases, religion used for exploitation. As I mentioned before, the red envelope survey. Red envelope. What say? The Chinese usually, you see, they offer some money in red or and Amitabha. You see, that also, you see, the other side. Intention.
Motivation.
Intentionally. Sort of showing some sort of pretend some holy person and receive money. Exploitation. That's why you see,
therefore, in Buddhism, one of the principles is the importance of not resorting to wrong livelihood. The source of livelihood needs to be a moral one.
But you see, there are such cases there. So, and my first visit to Mongolia, then still communist, 1979. The state museum, one sort of drawing,
painting.
One painting, one monk, huge mouth, like that. Then people, you see, going inside the mouth. And also the Chinese communists also, you see, used to say, "Kumamawo chakosebo."
So they use the phrase, "Kumamawo."
Chakosebo.
Red thief and yellow robbers.
So there are such people, such cases there. So only, you see, seeing that, then generalize whole Buddhism is sort of exploiting nature. Wrong. And similarly, you see, due to some sort of Islam, sort of Muslim, some sort of suicide bombing or the September 11th sort of event, due to that, generalize whole Islam is militant. It's totally wrong. Since September 11th, I came to forward defending Islam. I'm not Islam. I'm Buddhist. In the past history, in India, Buddhists much suffer under Muslim rule. That past is past. We should be honest. Now today, Buddhism, Islam, one of the important religion on this planet. Millions of followers there. I know many of them. Wonderful person. And I think in Muslim country, the bank interest, their very concept is against exploitation. So, if you see all those major religious traditions, if you see practitioners follow sincerely, all teach practice of love, compassion, forgiveness, these things. So similarly, this Marxist sort of criticism, Marx criticism, and also Chairman Mao's criticism, lack of knowledge about the fuller picture, just to pick up few things and then criticize. That's unscientific. Now these days, Chinese government fond to say scientific, scientific, scientific. So that often used to happen. Buddhists sometimes criticize some other religion. That also due to lack of knowledge. And some other sort of tradition criticize Buddhism. That also due to lack of knowledge. Clear? Like that. So, clear. There is no contradiction. Being Marxist, at the same time, Buddhist monk, no contradiction. Now this one. Yeah. In front line. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Holiness. As we were talking about transparency, and I totally agree with you on the issue of transparency, and actually emboldened by all the talk about transparency, I think I'm going to ask a question that may have to do with some confidential information. So I totally understand if you don't want to tell me. I'm interested. I'm interested in the choice of the next.
Confidential. I think confidential due to time. Sometimes you may need a little sort of confidential, but not the essence. Something to hide, or something sort of in essence, some kind of guilty. Then confidence. That's wrong. Totally wrong. Clear?
Yeah. Yes, I'm clear about the distinction, and I would understand. So what I'm curious about is the choice of the next incarnation of the Dalai Lama or the Panchen Lama. So is it really just predestined, or is there some room for human control? Like we have discussion, the kid has to come from some noble family. So that's my first question. And my second question is kind of a general one. So I'm just wondering, what kind of relation do you envision between Tibet and the Beijing central government in the years to come? And what kind of relation do you think there will be or should be? So two of my questions. Thank you.
I think it's obvious. Genuine procedure of choosing reincarnation is entirely on the person who take rebirth. So some cases, their last sort of will, they mentioned, I will born such place and such family name. Now, for example, just I think a few months ago, one Lama in India passed away. Some of his relative, later told me, before his death, he made one will. Now he soon will die. So his rebirth, will born, he mentioned one name of the location. And then also he mentioned some of the name, possible sort of his parent, he mentioned. And closed that envelope and sealed. So such things do happen. And then my own case, I don't know. This moment, I have no such sort of power. Where born, where born, when born, I have not yet reached that sort of stage. But in any way, this is purely religious matter, not political matter. But Chinese communist seems to say more concerned about my next life, more concerned than myself. That's obviously it's a political reason. Political reason. Now, second question. Second point. What's the second? Oh, yes. Almost my whole life involved the relation between Han Sang. I think happiest day about Han Sang, Da Tuanjie, 1950, beginning of 1955. 54, I think around September 54, I went Peking. Then, I think at least 6 months, 5 months, or 5 to 6 months, I remained Peking. During that period, I had several meetings with Chairman Mao and other leaders, almost all top leaders. Hu Yangpeng, briefly. Then Wu Jintao is, Jiang Zemin, not yet, you see, reaches that level. And of course, Deng Xiaoping. I remember very clearly, you see, Deng Xiaoping, remain in a chair like that. Not much sort of speak, but a very able person, a very determined person, like that. So in any way, so as a result of several meetings and discussion, and also I very much impressed about Marxism and socialism, Shefetui. I really love Shefetui. And then at that time, I very much sort of interest or love, full agreement about the Goji Tui. Yanzam. You heard that? Gejing Lusa. Goji Tui. Kasor, Danga Switch said Kasa. We Laodongji. We Laodongji. We Goji Laodongji. I love that. Very good. At that time, he was a communist. Not talking about national interest, but worldwide revolution for working class people's interest or their right. Wonderful. Really wonderful. And then also Tibetan question. Chairman Mao, actually, see, one occasion, long table, I sit here, Panchen Lama and some other Tibetan officials, and then the other side, Chairman Mao and Zhou Enlai and other sort of leaders. Then that corner, I think Zhang Jingwu and perhaps most probably, I think, Fan Ming. These two remain there. Then Chairman Mao told me, I sent these journals in order to help you. If these journals not listen your sort of wish, then let me know. I will withdraw. Do you believe that? Then again, one time, and one sort of highest sort of political meeting, from different department, people from different department. So Chairman Mao always say, because that bring me, he's just next to him. Next to him. Like this, you see the Chairman Mao and myself, and he really welcoming any criticism about party. Then it seems, I think the rest of the audience, I think all the participants, I think knows if criticize, express, then there will be some danger, maybe. So everybody remain very silent, nothing. Then Chairman Mao himself, you see, told at that meeting, I received some complaint from his own village, criticism about local comrade, local party member. Chairman Mao told, I received some letter. So we must sort of check these things. And then he turned to me, you Tibetan, in the past, one time, very powerful nation. Now you become very weak. We came to help you. After 20 years, you will be such a position, then it is your turn to help us, Chairman Mao. And then again, one time, these cases, translator, Mr. Phunzo Wangye. Anyone knows Phunzo Wangye? The one Tibetan comrade, communist. Now his age, I think, in 80s. Now his physical also not very good. So he was translator. One day he asked me whether there is Tibetan national flag or Tibetan flag. And I told him, yes, we have one flag. Then Chairman Mao told me, oh, beside the sort of the national sort of red flag, you should keep your own flag beside that. So I often is telling those people in Europe or in America who carry Tibetan sort of flag, I told them, when you receive some local Chinese officials or protest, then you tell them Dalai Lama already got a permission from Chairman Mao. So really wonderful sort of atmosphere. So then 1955 summer I returned from Peking. On the road I met Zhang Guohua, Shibajun Siling'ai, Shibajun, Zhang Guohua 同志，很好人，很好，very good. On the road, he coming from Lhasa to attend Peking. I'm coming back. So on the road, we met. We both cars stopped, and we met, and some sort of greetings. Then I told him, last year, that was 1954, when I coming this road to Peking, full suspicion, doubt. Now I'm returning this same way, full confidence. So, really happiest moment. We really sort of full of hope Tibet can build under the leadership of Chairman Mao and the Communist Party. Then, end of 55, beginning of 56, unrealistic reform started in eastern part, in then Xikang province there. So some problem start from there. Then Qinghai. Then eventually reach all over Tibet. Then that causing 1959 crisis. Then after we come to India, next about 20 years, you see no communication with Chinese government. But then after a cultural revolution, after sort of rehabilitation, all those leaders, including Deng Xiaoping himself. Then, end of 78, beginning of 79, my brother received some sort of indication from Peking, from Deng Xiaoping. He wanted to meet with my brother. And then brother came to see me and what to do. And I immediately, you see, told him, must go there. Because we, 74, China, still, they involve Cultural Revolution. We decided in Dharamsala, with few sort of our leaders,
small circle.
we decided, now sooner or later, we have to talk with central government. Then question of independence is unrealistic. So the constitution mentioned certain right to minority. And also we have a 17-point agreement with central government. So the essence of middle way set up at that time, 1974. So we already made up in our mind. Therefore, when I received some signal from Peking, they want to talk, then we already ready to talk. So then my brother immediately, went to Peking and meeting with Deng Xiaoping. I think more than 1 hour, about 2 hours. And then very good discussion. Beside independence, question of independence, anything can be discussed, he mentioned. So our side also already ready on that basis. Then, I had the opportunity to send some fact-finding delegation, and also my personal emissaries, go like that continuously. Then, eventually, the democratic movement, some of the university in Peking. Then the central government policy becoming more hardened. Then finally, Hu Yampang himself dismissed. Then finally lead Tiananmen massacre. And then, but our contact continue. Then 93 cease our direct contact with Chinese government. Then again, 2002, we renewed direct contact with Chinese government. Then up to last year, 9 times meeting with Chinese government. Immediate after the 2008 crisis, the Chinese government unusually announced in Xinhua, unusually, mentioned they're going to meet Dalai Lama's representative. And Hu Jintao himself admitted to some Japanese sort of reporter just before his visit to Japan. He sort of acknowledged there will be meeting, and he shows more seriousness. So at that time, and also we received some positive sort of indication through some of our the private channels from Peking. But then, few days, very positive signal. Then after a few days, completely changed, negative signal. Then our meeting 그거 어디? 니동 계획이 하루 잘했지 투야 돼. 아 맞다. 탱마.
담아지봐. 그것도 담아드려.
I think eighth sort of meeting. And actual meeting take place. Nothing sort of a new development, hardliner. Then the following that meeting, the 9th meeting, nothing. So, then meantime, the Chinese officials, hardliner, particularly Tung Rinpo, they described me as a demon. Kasa mogui sarve. Mogui. So that I first, you see, get that information through reporter. I was in Italy. So some Italy, some mayors, they themselves are Marxist, communist. So we have full agreement. They are Marxist, but not Leninist. So we have, you see, some getting there. So we received some reporters, some Italian reporter and some, I think, international reporters there. So they brought this information. Oh, now Chinese officials, they describe you as a demon. Then I immediately just respond, oh yes, demon with horn. That picture eventually became quite famous. Famous already, quite attractive. Oh, like that. So these are childish, really. Very short-sighted, like that. So, but for me, just for fun, nothing serious, no problem. So that's about the past the experience. The past experience shows much depend on individual leader. Huyanpang there, very open, very realistic. If Huyanpang still remain, I think remain longer, I think Tibet issue already solved. But then he dismissed. Then hardliner. So like that. So now, when Wu Jintao come to power, a number of people, and also international sort of media, express hoping, optimism, some positive change may take place. But 10 years now passed, nothing happened. Although Wu Jintao sort of, or say the emphasis, promotion of harmonious society, that's wonderful. I fully support, I fully agree. But harmony through gun, that's impossible, isn't it? The harmony, logically, I think Chinese communist leaders should study more human psychology, I think. The harmony based on trust. More fear destroy trust. Trust and fear cannot go together. So the Wu Jintao's, particularly the recent sort of months, recent sort of years, you see the method to build harmony based on using force, suppression. That brings more fear. Distrust. Distrust, just opposite of the harmony, like that. So therefore, now new leadership coming next year. We will see. I know Xi Jinping's father, I know very well. Xi Zhongxun, the Mishu-zhang, Zhou Enlai. I know very well. And when I was in Peking, I also give him one watch, wristwatch. So I think 7 and 9, my first delegation, fact-finding delegation, touring different parts of China, including Guangdong. Then Xi Jinping, Mayor Marikasa, Xi Zhongxun, Guangdong Xinjiang. So he showed one of my delegation member. He showed that wristwatch. This I received from Dalai Lama. Then he expressed. Then he already quite old. So before his death, he hoped meeting with Dalai Lama. So I know Xi Zhongxun. Now Xi Jinping, I don't know, new generation. So we'll see. We'll see. So basically, I always see telling people, according to my observation, 4 eras since 1949, Number one, Chairman Mao's era. Number one. Number two, Deng Xiaoping era. Number three, Jiang Zemin era. Then Wu Jintao era. The Mao Zedong era, emphasis, most important is pure ideology. So Cultural Revolution, some other reasons, personal sort of fighting also, quarrel also there, but actually I think try to build pure ideology. The old sort of traces should sort of eliminate. So Cultural Revolution, such things. And then leap forward ideologically. Yes, good. And people's commune system. These are wonderful, but not practical. So that's the Mao's era. Then Deng Xiaoping era. Don't care about ideology, whether white cat or black cat, doesn't matter, so long you see catch mice there. So capitalism doesn't matter. Socialism or capitalism doesn't matter, so long people can get rich. So unfortunately, now a lot of black cats, isn't it? A lot of corruption now. That's very, very unfortunate. But in any way, the Deng Xiaoping sort of economy liberalization really brought, I think, big change in China, particularly in coast area. But meantime, create new classes, middle classes, and millionaire like that. So then, Jiang Zemin era see the new reality. Now Communist Party no longer party of working class people. A party must represent all the wealthier people as well as the middle class people. So the idea of three represents. So these are new reality. According to new reality, you see, new sort of thinking is developed. Then, because of economy liberalization, the gap rich and poor, and also you see some guaranteed sort of right also is reduced. So therefore, need a special effort for promotion of harmony. So the Wu Jintao's, I think, original motivation is, I think, very right, to build a harmonious society, genuine datenje. But then I don't know. So this shows same Communist Party have the ability to act according new reality. Now today, the reality, information sort of period, you cannot control. And large number of young Chinese, brilliant young boys and girls, this is study outside world, already got some experience about open society and democracy, rule of law. I think many of you, I think since you came to America, I think in certain way of thinking, you already may be spoiled by American sort of habit. When you born, do you recite "May te go to ye, that already cease or still? When I was there, oh, may te go to ye. So now even if the party want to monopolize, control everything, now impossible. The reality must change. So party have to act according to new reality. So this is my argument. Things will change, will improve. Meantime, like you, these young, brilliant Chinese sort of student, I think you must work hard with vision and keep close contact people in motherland. Very, very important. Once you come here, you yourself as an individual, enjoy freedom. And if forget about our homeland is wrong, must think and keep contact. And while you are here, please study hard. I really happy to see number of professors, some universities, Chinese origin, come from mainland China. After Tiananmen event, join some of these university, then eventually become professors. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, if there is no danger, then eventually you must return and work hard there within the country. Like that. Thank you.
For the intimate and wonderful afternoon, you have energized everyone in this room. I take this opportunity to thank the learned panelists, engaged audience, and the dedicated volunteers for their contributions. For your information, we have arranged a reception in the adjoining room. After His Holiness leaves, please join the reception, make new friends, and maybe carry on the discussion. Thank you very much.